today is Gervaise, Heddle, the non-executive chair, and Marty Moloney, the MD of Buxton Resources, after the company have received final approvals for a drilling programme at Madman. Well, welcome to you both. Marty, how are things?
Fantastic, thank you, Mark.
And Gervaise, welcome back, of course. How are things with you?
Well, thank you. Great to see you, Mark.
Yeah, good to see you as well. So, I mean, this is slated to go for mid-April, and you said in the RNS that you see it as it puts you in a fantastic position to finally put the first ever drill holes into this exciting frontier target. So, yeah, how are you feeling about this, first of all, getting started on the ground?
Well, look, we're very excited just to be starting the Australian field season. You know, it's obviously we have a period of time here each year where we can't do much on the ground activity. So to be getting started again, what we hope will be a long and productive season this year is very exciting. With Madman in particular, I think it's a fantastic first cab off the rank. We've had this in the background for a long time, and it's a really exciting target for me personally because it has a striking resemblance to the Havieron geophysical signature that we had, and obviously where Greatland made the discovery. So to remind people, it's a bullseye magnetic anomaly covering about 1 square kilometre, and it's never been drill tested. So it's a very exciting target to begin with.
Well, I just want to talk about that a little bit because you've got the two comparisons here, Havieron we can see there, and of course Madman. So I mean, just talk to us about it. What does it mean? Does it mean it's exactly the same because the sort of the blueprint there looks the same, or what tell us about it?
I don't think it's exactly the same. That's probably be a little bit misleading. But Marty, did you want to flesh out a little bit the similarities and differences between the two targets?
I mean, and this plan image that we've got here shows Western Australia's coverage of airborne magnetics that the department releases. And we're looking at essentially a consistent image. So, you know, it's apples for apples in terms of scale and the way that the colors are stretched. So, you know, firstly, we've got anomalies which are very discrete. You know, they sit in a field of otherwise broader anomalies. So, you know, clearly something has happened here that's different, you know, and that's basically typical of, or basically describes what a mineral deposit is. You know, we are looking at something that has about very similar spatial extents, but interestingly, at Madman, we have a slightly higher amplitude. You can see from the colors, it's a little bit more distinct. So probably what we think that means is that whatever's driving this magnetic anomaly is closer to surface at Madman compared to Havieron. So yeah, we're expecting the target depth a couple of 100 meters, 220 meters we've got here in this announcement, as opposed to about 450 meters at Havieron. And, you know, the comparisons between the two is based on that geophysical feature. Very little is known about Madman. So, you know, we are testing its relatively high-risk exploration concept. But as far as, you know, constraining it down to the size and shape of what we're looking for, it's very, very similar to Havieron.
Good. Excellent. And I wonder if you can just talk a little bit to this image that was in the press release as well, and just sort of set out what it is we're looking at, but also what the end objective is. What's the ideal outcome from this drill campaign?
Yeah, so the previous image we saw was basically the result of you know, the measurements that planes take as they fly around the state in, you know, grid lines. What we're looking at here is when we try to convert that into, you know, where is, what's the causative feature of that magnetic anomaly that we've measured in the plane? And so we're looking here at a depth at which there's a marked contrast in the magnetic susceptibility of the rocks in the subsurface. So P1 and P2 are both of our planned drill holes for this program. And yeah, that they intersect these onion ring things. This is the what happens when we use the computers to invert the magnetics. And gives us this subsurface distribution and allows us to really quite precisely target these mag features. So, you know, we can see we've got the top of a couple of those magnetic susceptibility contrasts there at about, you know, a couple of 100 meters down. So the plan is to go in there with the capacity to drill well beyond that. So if the actual contrast is higher, if the thing is more magnetic, then it's going to be slightly deeper. So, we're giving ourselves the capacity to go in there, put the first holes ever into this target and answer the question, what is driving this mag feature here? Is it something like we've got at Havieron, where we've got magnetic sulfides, which are carrying copper and gold, or gold and copper, and which has turned out to be one of Australia's most significant recent discoveries.
And do you think you would get an answer to that very quickly?
Yeah, well, drilling a couple of holes should take us 3 or 4 weeks. And so, we hope to answer the question with the first hole. We've got, 1,000 meters up our sleeve. So, certainly if the results are positive, we've got the capacity with our clearances to basically keep going. But, we're going there with enough meters up our sleeve to answer the question.
Okay.
Yeah, we're within about 3 or 4 weeks. Say.
Okay, good. Gervaise, I wonder if I can just come back to you and just pick up on something that was recently announced about the miscellaneous license that's now live and how significant that milestone is for the Madman project.
Yeah, it's important because it means that we can now get access to the project, and we expect that the traditional owners will be out there shortly with us, supervising that track work. And then, once we get those tracks in, obviously we can get the equipment to site, the heavy equipment, and start the drilling.
Excellent, good. So the next steps are to basically get that rig mobilised. Anything else has to be done in terms of getting things ready to go on the ground?
Yeah, so it really is a major step forward. The Madman project is quite isolated, and so it needs a new track installed. The rapid grant of the miscellaneous license is a real testament to our engagement with the Aboriginal Corporation there. They allowed that license application to go through unchallenged by objection. They're working with us to supply monitors. We've engaged earthworks contractors, and we've got our program of work approved by the department. So really all of the pieces are in place to execute this program, and we're moving straight into the operational phase. We expect the earthworks contractors to mobilise along with the Aboriginal monitors late March, early April. They've got 6 kilometres of track to upgrade and another 59 kilometres of access to create. And once that access is in, really the drill rig will be clear to mobilise as soon as the rig and the guys at McKay's are available.
Okay. Excellent. And just finally then, any of the plans for Buxton throughout the course of this year in Australia?
Yes, we have a lot of plans this year, Mark, and so obviously it's an exciting first step. We've got several targets that we'd like to advance this year. Plus, I think importantly, we're going to keep doing what we've always promised investors we're going to do, which is keep staking new ground cheaply, exciting new targets for this year and also particularly for next year, but keep that process of upgrading our portfolio, dropping off the targets which don't make sense, picking up new exciting targets, and just keep working through them systematically until hopefully we make a major discovery.
Excellent. Well, thank you both very much for your time, Gervaise Heddle and Marty Moloney from Buxton Resources.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you very much, Mark.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at StockBoxMedia.com. Thank you for watching.